All right, we're going to fire this up right at 11:30. Everyone ready in the right spot? We're in the trenches with Platform SSO, Okta Connect, Network Relay at Jamf. I haven't had my CCA since 8, and I'm interested in this one. So I'm glad everyone made it today. My name is Adam Seagar. I'm going to be your session host. I'll be sitting in the back, so I'll facilitate the Q&A at the end of the presentation. But Emily and Matt, come on up, and let's just get it fired up. Let's go.
All right.
Oh,
Thank you. I think we're mic'd up.
Good.
We're good to go.
All right.
Disclaimer. Okay. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about, and we're going deep. Like when we say in the trenches, we really mean it.
Yeah,
so
it's
hopefully that's what you're all really here for. I'm Dr. K. I manage our client platform engineering team here at Jamf. We are the alpha customer for Jamf, so we run Pro, Protect, Security Cloud, Self-Service Plus, Connect, all that stuff internally for Jamf. So our own Jamf employees, including some folks in the room here, are using devices that my team manages internally as part of our IT department.
Yep, and I'm Matt Vlasach, VP of Products Strategy here at Jamf. Responsible for building a lot of the stuff that we get to put out in the field for you guys to use. Thanks for a great week here. I've had wonderful conversations with everyone, and I hope you liked what you saw. But a big part of what I do is working with Emily to help us make sure what we put out there actually works and is what you guys need and want. And there's no one better than our own IT department. I have a couple thousand employees to make sure that stuff is working and designed for someone who, for the use cases that are actually out there and keeps our product visions, grounded in reality. So, thanks for having us.
So, Jamf at Jamf today. Do you want to take us through some of these topics, or do you want me to talk through it?
Yeah, well, I'll go through it, and you could riff off of it and let us know how it goes. So,
yes.
Yeah, go ahead and let's start with device. So, this is where we are today on how we think about our platform. And again, I'm going to kind of lead from a little bit of a product perspective, but Emily is the one who really, again, is taking these things and building them into actual practice. So there's kind of 4 categories: device management, password sync, biometric app access, and zero trust network access. And they all kind of come together to form our core connectivity and Mac, security and management strategy. So let's start with device management, Emily. So to begin with, no terribly huge surprises, right? We're using Apple Business Manager with automatic device enrollment. We're getting the devices enrolled through enrollment customization. So we're using multi-factor authentication at the very beginning there. You guys, a lot of you have seen that. We have Jamf Connect login deployed from the beginning. We'll talk about password sync here more in a moment with that. We use DEP Notify to complete some of those customizations of how we are able to get some of the things set up and onboarded. And then we have some agents and security baselines that are installed automatically. So we're installing our Jamf Protect agent. We're installing other configuration profiles and the like. Anything you want to add that we're doing?
Just to be super clear with some of that stuff, right? We are Jamf Pro customers. We use Jamf Pro as our primary MDM internally at Jamf for our employees. We use Jamf Connect login during that pre-stage. Our enrollment customization goes through Okta. Okta is our IDP internally, so that's going to be a big part of our focus today as we talk through these topics. And yeah, DEP Notify is that final touch on the end of that enrollment experience that gives folks an opportunity to customize some additional applications they might need and make sure they're ready to go and start working. One thing we didn't touch on here is that Jamf Trust is an important component of our access policies. And as things currently stand, an employee needs to go in, launch the Jamf Trust application, sign in with their Okta identity to start getting that zero trust connectivity. And that's kind of the high level of our Jamf stack and how it enables our employees in that onboarding experience.
Perfect. So that brings us to password sync. We're currently doing passwords and synchronizing passwords. We have a vision to get away from passwords, but that's where we're at today. We're using Jamf Connect to create that initial admin account during the setup enrollment process. So I think we saw a screenshot of that before. We actually have no password rotation policy. We'll talk about how we can do that through our different layered, kind of trusted access connectivity model, but we basically got away from saying, hey, if we're on a trusted device and we have phishing resistant credentials, we don't need to make you change your password and just annoy the user all the time for that. It doesn't actually give you anything from a security perspective. But then we do, the sync is essential, so we make sure that when a password is forgotten or something weird happens like that, we're able to keep those passwords in sync so you don't have this bifurcated password experience.
Yeah, and Self-Service Plus is one of our new products. It's kind of this next evolution of self-service that company, I don't want to call it company portal. It is your app catalog and IT services portal for your employees. But one of the newer things that we have now is bringing in that piece of the identity into that home screen and Self-Service Plus, because their identity at your organization is a critical component of how they interface with your devices, how they get access to services. So having it really easily and visible in here, a lot of this right now comes from Jamf Connect login, how that account is created during the enrollment process.
Perfect. Very happy users of Okta Verify and FastPass. It works great. Our users love it. It works wonderfully on Mac as well as all of our mobile footprint devices. We are using, so FastPass registers a secure token in the user's keychain that when Okta access policies say, hey, I need to verify with biometric factor, go ahead and challenge. You get a nice pop-up on Mac where you just scan your fingerprint, or if you're on your phone, a little thing comes up for a second, scans your face, you're in. I mean, it is the post-password era. Like, it is, our users love it, and it's actually very secure, and we'll talk about how it kind of layers in with some of our other strategies here as well.
And just to show you what that looks like, so here I'm signing into Jamf Pro. And Jamf Pro is one of our applications because it's a critical component of our device management and access policies that we require trusted access, biometric authentication, coming from a trusted location, and being in the group in Okta that grants access into that server. We've got that layered approach. So here, when I sign in, I actually get prompted to sign in, and instead of typing in a username and password, I just get this Okta Verify prompt. I use my biometric, my Touch ID, and then it pops me right in, and that's kind of what that looks like when you have that set up, which is great because typing in passwords over and over again is laborious, and I would hope at a certain point it knows who I am if I can give it that handshake. Yes, I should be able to get into this Jamf Pro server. I have the access, and I've followed all of the requirements to get to it.
Before you move on, one quick thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of behind the text there, but management attestation. So it's actually a feature of Okta where we deploy a SCEP certificate using, so Okta provides a SCEP server for our service. So what we do is we actually will request a SCEP server from Okta as part of, through our MDM that will land on the device. And then Okta Verify is looking for that certificate as a way of attesting that the device is actually under management. So we get a strong attestation for Okta Verify to understand that that device is actually a managed device and not just someone who downloaded Okta Verify and installed it with all the right credentials on a personal device. That's a very important part of the kind of platform there. Okay,
Let's talk zero trust. Yes.
Favorite. So ZTNA. So we use, as Emily mentioned, we deploy the Jamf Trust application down on the device. It uses FastPass for authentication. So it's an agent that is downloaded. The user activates it the first time. Again, that same prompt that Emily showed. Boop, you're in, it activates the networking layer for everything. At that point, we have access policies that are least privilege based. So you have group-based access policies to be able, if you're a developer, you have access to certain build resources. If you're sales, vice versa, and you don't get access to what you shouldn't. All that's managed at the network layer based upon group identity and some user identity. It gives us connectivity to public resources. We provide encryption. We add extra layers of encryption and assurance, like for connections to SaaS providers, by obfuscating traffic, and hiding it within a tunnel on the last mile, out in the wild. But then we also have some IPsec tunnels that connect to our various private cloud infrastructure. So if you're trying to access an internal build server, for instance, that's siloed and isolated off from the internet. What's great, you just do that one authentication, and then if you're authorized to get to those services, anything in the browser, on the, in the command line, all your tools, they just magically connect to the stuff that you need to be able to work with. It has full DNS coverage, so we have private internal DNS. All that just works. It's great. Would you add anything?
Not yet. We're going to add more to that in a bit here, I think.
Yes, we are. Okay. So from a visual perspective, we have managed devices, we have unmanaged devices, we have multi-platform. So yes, we have a heck of a lot of Apple devices, but we also have Android as well as Windows. So for the managed devices, we have our device management service. We're using the management consoles, Pro, Connect, Protect, all those sort of things. We are setting up the security cloud with our policy services, saying what you have to be a managed device, you have to have pass security compliance checks, all those sort of things. That infrastructure has an edge to manage traffic services. So the administrator sets all this up through our various consoles and through, as you heard about, IAC and API. So go ahead and do another build there. There it is. We push down through app configuration profiles and policies. We push down the Jamf Trust app. We also push down the Okta app. That then, once you authenticate through SSOE, that creates that WireGuard connection through the Jamf Trust agent to our cloud service. We also deploy secure DNS, so all the DNS leaving the device is encrypted. There's no plain text DNS on the wire. We do on-device content filtering. You then, as I mentioned, if you fit all the policies, you can go to your cloud services as well as private infrastructure that way. We are emitting all of those events of access policies, so every event, whether it's on a mobile device or a Mac, or Windows or Android, it's all getting streamed to our Splunk SIM. Now for unmanaged devices, we have a few of those too. Go ahead and build that out, I think, isn't it? There we go.
I think it's behind.
We're good.
Stay. Okay, I'm not gonna touch it again.
Stay. Okay, so what we do with this is kind of fun. So for unmanaged devices, you don't have the management plane to push down Jamf Trust and to get that stuff going. So what we do is we let the user download Jamf Trust from an app store. And then they log in using their Okta credentials. And we have something called identity-based provisioning that will take that, your user and the group claims that you have set up in there. We map that to an activation profile that will activate Jamf Trust with that least privilege access to give you a very narrow VPN tunnel to just the resources that you need. So it sits there on the device. There's no management plane, but your network access is very narrow.
Take your screen, take your pictures now. We're going to move on to another slide here in a second. You all good? Okay, I saw a few. All right, so let's talk about our access model, our layered approach. Do you want to talk us through that
I'll start it through, yeah.
Okay.
So we have 4 levels of access. So you can think about the most permissive access at the bottom and the most restricted access at the top. We have some examples of where, of the services that are there. But bottom line is, if you just need to get into the basics, like marketing materials and all that stuff, that's not a very high trust bar. We don't want to have to, we want you to have more flexibility and more platforms to be able to get to those sort of things. So as long as you can prove your identity and always MFA, there's no single factor here. We want to make sure you're always multi-factor authentication, ideally with FastPass. We'll get you through to some of those things. We then, level 2, we make sure you're making those requests from a managed device. That was that attestation we talked about a second ago. Level 3 is where you have to be on a trusted network, and that's actually through Jamf Trust. So you're on we have to make sure that you are routing your traffic in a way that we know that it's coming from a trusted device where we have all these layers of attestation coming through. And then level 4 is where it's all the things. Managed device, trusted network with Jamf Trust, multi-factor phishing resistant credential, and all that stuff is there. And that really just makes sure that we're right-sizing the security posture or the security requirements for the data that's being accessed. And we go through with each of our apps and our access policies. What's our process like? We have a whole kind of system where we're able to figure out and classify these services. And
we call it Trusted Access Governance, and it's a collaborative group. It includes enterprise security, IT, project management, some other components across Jamf, and we assess the applications in our environment. What is our risk level? What's the potential surface of that thing? And then determine what level of trusted access would be required to access that service. So you're going to the company directory, that's a low bar. We just want to know who you are that you should be able to get to it. But if you're trying to get into GitHub, we need to know who you are, what device you're coming from, you're coming over our trusted access connection, and you're authorized with the Okta group to get to those services. And all of those layers come together to make sure that critical business data, company data, customer data is as secure as possible, and only the right people from the right devices can get to it.
Yep.
And I just want to show you really quickly what happens when you don't meet the criteria real quick, so you see how this all works. And Okta is a critical component of this with how we've handled all this policy work. So I try to go to Jamf Pro, but I don't have my network relay or spoiler alert, or Jamf Trust enabled. It says, hey, you don't meet the necessary conditions for assurance to get to this resource. So you need to go figure out what's going on, make sure your device is up to date. If you're not sure what to do, here's a link to submit a ticket to IT to make sure you can get to that resource effectively. A lot of the time it's someone just needs to turn their trusted access back on. Sometimes their device is out of compliance. A new version came out, they didn't hit the deadline to update, and now their operating system is out of date. You need to go update before you can get to this resource. So that all happens through that layered approach of our trusted access model.
Yeah, and it's all automatic, right? Like a lot of this stuff is just being based upon policy we predefined. So, and again, this sort of UI, Okta let us customize the screen a little bit ago. It's something that's in there that actually has been super useful. So, so customers can, or end users can actually understand, okay, I kind of know what I have to do here to get going.
Exactly. So now let's talk about what y'all are really here for. What's the next gen?
What's the next gen?
What's our automated enrollment 2.0?
Yep.
What is that zero-touch, out-of-the-box onboarding going to look like now that we have some new functionality at our disposal, the thing that you probably all want to hear about, which is specifically simplified setup for Platform SSO.
Yep.
So tee us up.
Yeah, so these 4 things, platform single sign-on, simplified setup. We got network relay, and we talked about a little bit of the Jamf Trust stuff and having to turn it on. This actually makes that part go away. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then ACME device attestation as a PKI to help us with our certificates and make our lives a little bit more easy when it comes to certs, as well as more secure. So I'll start with the Platform SSO bit,
Yes.
and then jump in. So yeah, we're replacing Jamf Connect login with Platform SSO. We are actually going to be using that. We're going to take other pieces of Jamf Connect to leverage those as part of our strategy here. But by and large, we're going to be using the native password sync mechanism that comes with Okta Device Access and part of the PSSO work. We have the notification-based process for onboarding users. If you are already enrolled, you're going to be able to go and go into this. And then all those author-related events. So when you log in, we're tying in with our telemetry services. So we could see events like when you log in, at what time, if we do privilege escalation, when that sort of stuff happens. Now, Emily, we're a little bit still deciding on what groups we want to go to activate PSSO for our existing fleet. We'll talk about simplified setup in a second, but I think we're at least going to allow those that want PSSO to play with it in. And what we do otherwise is
We'll put the IT manager hat on for a second, right?
Yep.
For those of you, the Mac admins in the room, it's awesome to be able to talk to you directly as these are the things that we think about from a roadmap perspective about the life cycle of a device's local user account, right? And how you plan for that thing long term. So the plan will be, once we're prepared with the appropriate licensing that we need for this, that new enrollments after that date will come in with platform single sign-on. And you're going to see a video, if you were in Adam's session yesterday, we'll play the demo video again so you can see what the whole process is proposed to look like with this implementation. And Mark is here and was very helpful in doing some discovery work for me. My concern was, and maybe some of you are thinking of this too, so if I enable it in my pre-stage, what happens to the pre-existing users who maybe we want to flip over? Because from a service perspective, having mixed account building can be difficult to support for your help desk and troubleshooting. If one account is created in one way and another's are created in the other way, how do you support that from a service desk perspective? But you can actually, for us at least with Jamf Connect login, remove the Jamf Connect login bits that tie into the identity provider, deploy the single sign-on extension that goes to Okta, have the user go through that registration process so that their local account is tied to their IDP, and then set a sudo profiles renew type enrollment command to re-trigger the enrollment process. The beauty of that, and why I want it very selfishly, and maybe some of you do too, is when Jamf Connect login right now creates your local user account just in time during setup, it's created with device channel MDM only. It does not also create user channel MDM on that device for that user. When you re-enroll with the user registration in place, you get user channel MDM without having to wipe the device. Now, why do I want that? I want it for blueprints, so that I can start doing things that require the user channel, like Safari extension management and Safari bookmark foldering, and some of those things that'll be really quality of life enhancements, not only for our end users, but also to enable our security teams to make sure we're appropriately deploying extensions that we need in Safari, and it's something we just haven't been able to effectively do up until this point. So there is an on-ramp that doesn't require just waiting for refresh to get everybody up to speed. Now, what I will tell you is I haven't done thorough testing of that part yet, because this is so new.
Yeah.
It's so new. but these things we're figuring them out. And we're going to be finding ways as the IDPs are adopting this new technology, how we can enable our shared customers to figure out this roadmap for your user accounts on your devices as well.
Perfect. Yeah, and that leads into simplified setup, right? So this is the new OS 26 stuff. This is where you are making onboarding into Platform SSO a critical atomic process with your enrollment of, with ADE. So now you're going to have to go through, after device management, you then create you get authenticated through Platform SSO. It lights up the single sign-on extension, and all your tokens are available so that by the time you land on the desktop, you're ready to just open apps and start getting single sign-on. It's awesome. So as part of this process for us, FastPass is going to get bootstrapped. There's another part where you actually will authenticate to create the credential. All that's coming through, and then users are ready. Like I said, by the time they hit the desktop, they're ready to go. And it has user channel support, as you mentioned. There's some stuff obviously in the DDM spec today that we're missing, but who knows what the future holds. We want to be able to be ready for all that inevitable future there.
So that is automated enrollment, and then automating IDP-governed user accounts created on the device. So then the next piece is that onboarding of the secure access for the device. Right.
So Relay, there's been a couple sessions on that. If you don't know much about this, I would definitely go check it out. It's a really exciting technology stack, but it's effectively agentless, built into the operating system. It uses managed device attestation for client certificate connectivity. It ultimately the moment the device is enrolled into management, you have a secure network tunnel that the user didn't have to do anything to set up. It doesn't require credentials, doesn't require an app. It's just there. So that means from a ZTNA perspective, we have a lot of flexibility in that pyramid of the layer. We could start doing some layer 4 things really early without the user ever having to do anything on the device besides authenticate themselves with Platform SSO and FastPass. So it really, really is a cool architecture because now we have literally zero-touch networking assurance and connectivity that is now coupled with Platform SSO. So by the time you reach to the desktop, the user just went through one atomic flow that they just had to get through to get to the desktop, and they have their phishing-resistant credentials, they have secure networking, and we have strong device attestation done. It's pretty cool. So really excited about it.
And it's moving closer and closer to removing the middleman in that access, right? We're removing this requirement for agents that have their own authentication and interaction of the end user. We're saying your onboarding process before you even get to the desktop includes MDM, IDP, and secure access. And then when they get to the desktop, they're ready to roll. There's nothing else required.
Yeah, so if you build this out, you'll see, if you remember, this is the diagram we had a second ago of our current status. So go ahead and click again. What we're doing is we're adding another networking option, which is the built-in agent with the Apple Network Relay, where we're using a mask tunnel, using that device attestation certificate for a client identity. That, again, that's just deployed through an ACME profile as early as pre-stage, and you have secure, encrypted, and attested networking from the very get-go. And it just layers in perfectly. It's just that last mile option is the only thing that changes.
And this is a fun one because maybe some of y'all have never really seen this before, which is what does it look like using Jamf Trust as a WireGuard VPN agent versus having Network Relay installed on a Mac? What does it just look like for an end user on your device? So this is just very simply 2 screenshots. On one side, you see you're all set. So that is the Jamf Trust application, right? That is our WireGuard VPN that user authenticates into to create the trusted tunneling for internal resources. And then on the right, that's literally my Mac that's in here right now. And it's just this toggle in system settings. VPN and Relay, Network Relay is on. Got it during an opt-in flow that we have here. Don't need the agent anymore. It's just Apple native right on the platform level. My relay is on. I don't have to interact with an application to get that access set up.
If users want, they can turn it off, but they'll lose access to stuff in that layer level 4, level 3. So you have some optionality. Apple does provide the option to gray that switch out and force it on, but we like to give our users choice to that sort of thing for troubleshooting or whatever reasons they need.
We also, when it comes to Jamf at Jamf, like, you know, the people at Jamf are building this technology.
Yeah.
So we do have these moments where we need to be flexible, allow people to turn things off, maybe remove management, re-add management, do true drinking your own champagne of these solutions, right? Even with what we provide from management. But that's again where that layered approach for our access policies becomes very important, because they still need to be, even with all of the shenanigans that our developers are up to enable you all with this technology, and myself, right? And it's all good shenanigans.
Lots of shenanigans.
We still have to secure all of our resources and make sure our
Yeah.
company data and our customer data is secure. So that's why that managed device, trusted access, those are all a part of our policy. They fall out of management, they've got to get managed again before they can get the keys back to the castle, so to speak. Let's tell the folks a little bit about ACME.
Yeah, last slide here. So ACME DA as a PKI. So we're looking at integrating SmallStep. So SmallStep's here. They've got a pro offering that is the only one that I'm aware of on the market that does actual ACME device attestation with a client attest 01 web authent kind of authentication process. So key thing, if you go talk to your certificate vendors, the PKI vendors out there, they will say, yeah, of course we do ACME. Your question is, do you do ACME device attestation? Because those are two very different things. That device attestation extension is what makes this whole thing work. Just an ACME certificate doesn't get you anywhere. So you got to find a vendor that provides that. We're going with SmallStep. And they have a very simple interface where for our use case we want to have a more seamless and lower maintenance Wi-Fi kind of management experience. Right now, with how we do certificates, it's a lot of lift. I mean, I'm sure it's very common with a lot of you. Just getting Wi-Fi certs is just an incredible burden. They make it really simple with a cloud-based offering where we just tie that in. We get an attested certificate from Apple, load that up. As long as that device serial number matches a serial number in our Jamf Pro, and again, this is all cryptographically verified, then boop, you get on Wi-Fi. We're also looking to do some GitHub source control for some of our developers by using Git SSH certs that are also ACME-based. And again, all this integrates with Jamf Pro. So pretty excited about this because again, it just gets those devices on the network. One less thing, you don't have to do like a radius login with your username and password to like do all that on Wi-Fi. It just works. And then we have the network relay kick in. So whether you're at the office, at home, on an airport Wi-Fi, your experience is exactly the same.
Yep. I like to think that we are agnostic to what network your computer or phone is attached
Absolutely.
to. And then any of the important traffic that we really care about is what we set up with policy to route through our tunneling. So be at Starbucks, be in the office, be in an airplane, you just need to make sure that you've got that trusted access turned on to get to your resources. The rest of it is oblivious, right? Is that the term that they use? Oblivious to the other HTTP traffic? We just don't really care.
Yeah, and like from a zero trust product strategy perspective of where we're taking everything, it's like you just need an internet connection. Mm-hmm. Just give us internet. You should have no inherent trust, so there should be nothing on your Wi-Fi or corporate network that's because you were able to associate with that network, you somehow have access rights to more privileged information. We don't trust the network at all. All we need is an internet connection.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for.
That's right. This is the Emily K show right now. Let's go.
Please, video, please play. So what you're going to see is a few minutes, and we'll probably talk over a little bit. There's no audio, right? But what you're going to see is what we've been like, what are we going to call this? Like Zero Touch 2.0, onboarding 2.0, something like that, that next evolution of onboarding for macOS. I'm hoping that this just starts to play. Please, 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 please. Yes!
Yes!
All right, so we're at the device management screen. Y'all are probably very familiar with this one. This is enrollment customization. This is so that we know that the user is authorized to enroll a device with our organization, right? And that's going through Okta. Okta is our IDP. I'm typing my password in, which is lovely to watch, I'm sure. Here, because I'm already a known identity, I have Okta Verify on my phone. I get a biometric. I just do Face ID. It gets me through. And then at this point, we're going to start installing all the required enrollment profiles. At this point, we're also getting our SCEP certificate for Okta, We're getting our platform single sign-on, our SSOE extension set up with a profile. Network relay also happened at this point. Now we're at what's called Setup Manager. This is a super, super, super cool app built by our consulting engineers here at Jamf. You can get it from Jamf Concepts.
Highly recommend.
It's like a bootstrapped enrollment customization application, which we love. And we can use it to say, is Okta Verify there? Did they do this thing? Did the file vault encryption happen? Before we even let the computer get to the next state. Here we're authorizing with Okta to start doing the simplified setup for PSSO. This is the account creation process. We're phoning home to Okta and saying, yes, we're a known identity directly with Okta, and we should be able to now set up our account, and you'll see the name and username have been brought through attributes set in Okta, and the local user account and home folder have been generated. Here, we need location services for time server and stuff like that. Now, we're doing Touch ID here. This is really important because one, Touch ID is awesome. And two, because at this point, we're going to register for FastPass. That's going to get us that one-touch biometric authentication with Okta Verify when we start signing into our critical resources through our trusted access modeling. So we're authenticating there to register that finger like a person with FastPass so we can start doing authentication once we get to the desktop. And then at this point, I believe we end up at our desktop. And then I'm going to just say, hey, Self-Service Plus is here. And I'll just give you a quick view of how Self-Service Plus menu bar app, which we've kind of historically called Jamf Connect, right? The Jamf Connect menu bar can continue to coexist with that single sign-on created user account. It sees who I am. I have the menu bar. If you noticed in there, I can load that up with my link to our service desk, quick launch for Self-Service Plus. And in addition to, which I can try to show you in a little bit here depending on time, we can use account elevation and demotion settings with the menu bar app on top of that single sign-on created user so that we can have users come in, create it as standard, and then continue to use Connect for our elevation and demotion request flow for those users if that's a requirement that we have there. And then there's Lynn, being the baddie that she is, on stage every year in the keynote, who we love, welcoming everybody to Denver and thanking you all for being here, and we'll see you in Kansas City next year. So there's our demo. So we thought what we would do next. It's the last session, right? And we're all just kind of here hanging out. It's been a great conference, right? I'm going to pop to the back of the room and plug in my computer. And we're going to load up a Jamf Pro server and show you what all the configurations look like that I used to set up that pre-stage. All the profiles, and just give you a sense of what that whole thing looks like. And then after that, I believe I should have some screenshots from an Okta preview tenant. How you get the app, the platform single sign-on app, how you set it up, how you do the attribute mapping, so you really will get, I mean, we're talking like we're so in the weeds where like our fingers are in the dirt, right, of how you can set this stuff up. Exactly. So I'm gonna pop back there, and I'll hand this to you.
We agreed that I just kind of dance up here.
He's going to entertain you all up here, and I'm going to come back.
Hey, no. But yeah, so Emily's going to go back there. We're going to be putting the screen up here in a second. But yeah, while she's setting that up, I think one of the things we're going to be maintaining is a resource, jamf.it/PSSO. So if you didn't see that at any of your other sessions yet, make sure to keep an eye on that. That's where we're going to be posting guides on how to set all this up. Feature capability matrices for the different identity providers, and so as we make updates, that'll be a great resource for you to go in and learn the latest and greatest from our consulting engineers as we build this stuff out. So hopefully this should switch over soon. There we go. Maybe while we wait for that, any questions I could maybe answer? I'll have to repeat it. Yeah, go ahead. So the question was, is there a recommended order of operation for setting all this up, and how do we start and what do we progress to? So I would say we most definitely started with FastPass and the phishing-resistant credentials. That's from a security standpoint of where the problems in the world are today, it is all around that. It is making sure you get away from passwords as quickly as possible because organizations are getting compromised left, right, and center. We then moved into the zero trust bit and being able to do the device attestation through Okta, and then being able to have that secure networking that layered on top of that, and then of course PSSO.
Maybe one more, and then
Maybe one more
start.
question, and then we're going to get going. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm newly into the Mac world. So biometrics, we use it to unlock the machine, but not to log in, because we still need a password to log in.
So the question was, can you use biometrics just to log in or also to log into apps? Is that right?
When you initially log in, you can use biometrics. So you have to use password.
Yes.
And then you can use biometrics to unlock yourself.
Yes.
So in that initial login, after enrollment and everything,
Yeah.
is this solving this, or we still need a password at that point?
You still need a password. And we're not fully passwordless on the macOS platform, yet. Hopefully that is something we'll see eventually. But I mean, really, no platform is passwordless. You have pins, and I guess you could set that up on Windows a little bit. But the point is, you have some password you need to have. Check out the session I did this morning at 9 a.m. I kind of talked through secure enclave back tokens versus password sync. That's something we're looking to do in the future as well. But we're going to get there. Emily, you ready to rock?
I think so. I feel like I'm the Wizard of Oz back here behind the curtain, just making things.
Totally.
So this is our QA tenant that we use internally. We call it's biscuits with the boss. If any of you have ever watched Ted Lasso, you sit down and set the day with the boss with biscuits before you go and do your job, right? So this is where we test everything. So I'm going to start with the pre-stage and how we have that initially configured. We set up a new pre-stage here, and really the main thing that's changed is that we've got this new option here for enable simplified setup for platform single sign-on on macOS, macOS 26 or later. And then here's where you put the bundle identifier of the application that's facilitating that single sign-on flow. And for us, it's Okta, so that bundle ID is com Okta Mobile. Now, because this simplified setup during Setup Assistant is unique to macOS Tahoe and newer, something that you'll want to consider is making a minimum requirement of macOS 26 in your pre-stage for this, so that new enrollments coming in, maybe they come out of the box from a warehouse and they still have an old version of macOS, that you go in and require 26 first before they continue through that process. How we had this configured, we have two enrollment packages. We've got our copy of Okta Verify. This is a provisional build. You'll never see anything like this. There's a version coming out later this month from Okta that's going to include this functionality, so keep an eye on your tenant for that release for the Okta customers in the room. And then I've got my Setup Manager app. That's that bootstrapper that we showed you with the step-by-step increment of doing the customization steps that happened. In our profile, I've got I've got our PSSO for setup. I've got File Vault basic disk encryption enabled here. Okta Device Access SCEP, so that's our SCEP certificate for that device trust layer of this enrollment process. And then our configuration for Setup Manager. I'm not going to talk about configuration for Setup Manager. We're just going to focus specifically on Platform SSO. So there's our pre-stage. It's pretty light. It's pretty simple. We're letting that PSS flow govern everything that's going to go on for that automated enrollment experience. So in here, I'm so glad I named it that, so it's right at the top and I don't have to scroll. Good job, past me. So we will start with, I'm going to focus specifically on our Okta Verify for PSSO, our SCEP, and I think we'll just focus on those two here. These other ones are probably not super surprising. If we have time, we can talk more about self-service and a basic configuration for that at the end. So for platform single sign-on, and we are going to show you some screenshots from Okta Preview in a bit here so you can see where some of this information comes from. But in here, we've got our single sign-on extension. I'll go into edit mode, so maybe some of the options are a little easier to read. So our payload type is going to be that SSO. We've got our service extension bundle identifier to handle that single sign-on flow, the team identifier from Okta, who is the developer of the application. We've got redirect set for our Okta Preview tenant. This stuff is where we're instructing the client to go to authorize the user and process that onboarding from the identity provider. Now here's the fun stuff, right? Some of these settings aren't necessarily new. Platform single sign-on isn't new. It's the simplified setup layer that is, right? So we're going to use platform single sign-on. Initial authentication method right now for us and Okta is going to be that password. We want IDP authentication at file vaults. We want to attempt authentication before the user can proceed through certain steps of authenticating on the device. Some things we have turned off in here right now, like a login and a lock screen policy. Those are things we're still evaluating to make sure they're working the way that we expect before we put them in a production implementation. Some of the other things that you can do in here, you can determine non-platform SSO accounts. Like I would imagine a scenario would be here like an IT admin account that maybe you want to be created on a device, something like that. Mark Buffington will correct me if I'm wrong on my paraphrasing of what that does. I'm thankful that he's here. We're going to enable registration during setup. This is some of that simplified setup for platform single sign-on. Create that just-in-time account creation, right? We're going to use password as our initial authentication method there. Shared device keys you have to use to do this flow. We're going to create a new user at login, and we're going to use our identity provider for those authorization prompts. So those are the main settings that you'll want. Some of the other stuff is experiential. Jamf IT is what I put in for anything that you see from a management perspective. And then these user mapping attributes, that's what creates that username. This is what creates the local account name. Those are things that are specified in Okta Preview, and the Okta documentation shows that you should be using those values to create those things on.
But Emily, this is a pretty important one, right? Like this is like how that username field is actually created.
Exactly.
So, and it's taking an attribute from the access token that comes back from Okta to create that username. So usually if you have an @ symbol, like all hell breaks loose on a Mac device there. So this is a way that you could have a different form of identifier that is, macOS friendly in your account name.
Yeah,
so
and if you're at an organization where maybe your login username, your UPN, and your email, maybe they're different.
Exactly.
You can set the mappings in Okta to be the way that you would prefer them to have those accounts created locally. Like we run into that internally even ourselves. So you can say use this value from a user profile in Okta to create that macOS account full name versus that macOS account username so that you can have control over how that is mapped in the account creation process. For my testing here, we're creating our new accounts as standard so I can test elevation and demotion with Connect. You don't have to do that, it just depends on your organizational requirements. And then I think there's another important one down here, that device identifiers and attestation. That's the piece that Matt was talking about earlier, where we can use that serial number to validate the device to make sure that it's authorized for the types of access we're using to create the account. And Matt is going to add some more detail there.
Yeah, specifically, this is so the IDPs are allowed to get that attestation certificate from Apple during the setup process. So this is us just making that available, and then it's up to the IDP to ingest that during their device registration process of PSSO.
So there's a single sign-on extension. There are some other configurations for the app config, if you want to think about it that way, for the client itself that you're going to set in here. These are things that are in the Okta documentation. Don't feel like you have to take pictures of it if you don't want to. But in here, all of these settings will come from the documentation that you follow. This client number is going to be the client ID that is generated when you add the platform macOS app, platform single sign-on for macOS app in your Okta tenant. It will have this value. You're going to grab that and use it in here, and I'll show you how you get that stuff in a little bit here. And then you're going to have additional settings for app config, for username. This, as you may all recognize, is a Jamf Pro value, that username attribute. So this is where if you do have a mix of username, email, and UPN that are all slightly different, here's where you will potentially start getting a unified user object in Jamf Pro that maps from that value from Okta to start pulling all of that together if you end up having kind of mixed username versus full email, especially for folks who have managed Apple accounts and are doing like BYO enrollment and stuff like that. And then here we're just disabling password reset in that client because we are going to facilitate that differently, I believe, is what that is. Here's where I go, I'm a Mac admin and not an identity person, and all the identity people in the room are cringing at how I'm trying to explain it effectively in this conversation. So there's your SSO. So some of those settings, if you're already doing platform single sign-on at the user level, you're already familiar with. It's the additional attributes for the simplified setup that are new that you need to go in and enable to get that setup assistant experience working. So I'll just show this one really quick. This is pretty straightforward. This is our SCEP certificate. And I'll go back into edit mode so that we can see stuff in here. And for the recording, for historical record, after we go through this recording, I will be recycling all of the links and everything that's in here. It will not, you can't use this stuff. By the end of the day, this will all be blown up. All right, so these are all details you're going to get when you generate your CA for device access in Okta, which again, I'm going to show you in a little bit here. We just have a generic name of CA Okta. Our redistribute value is 14 days. Do I need to talk about the PI around profile identifier and the subject name of these certificates in Jamf Pro? I really don't want to. We can
I think we're too
ping
short on
that
time
to Q&A.
anyway.
We specifically call it these variables. That's the templating for what the certificate is going to be named on the device when it's created. We're using dynamic CA in this situation. You can also use static if you prefer. And then these username and password values are going to come out of Okta when you set up the device access CA. And then from there, your key size, and then you want to disable allow export from keychain. You don't want people trying to pop this on other devices. And then you do want to set it for the system to allow all apps to access it. That way that the Okta Verify app can access that certificate.
Exactly right.
So that was the two primary configurations for getting platform single sign-on, simplified setups in your Pro server, as well as the certificates used for that pre-stage that we demoed. And I think at that point, we can flip back to the deck and start showing some Okta stuff, I think.
Yeah, we have a couple more slides, just the screenshots for that. Emily, do you want to run back up and do that? Or do it from back there?
Yes, and I will try to not walk as close to the speaker this time so we don't all get our ears blown out. I'll come this way. This is fun. I need to get my steps in today anyway.
There we go. The clicker's not working though. So how about we switch? You do this, I'll go push the button.
Well, it should be on their thing now.
Yeah, woo,
He did it that time, not me.
Yeah, it was my fault.
Oh, now I have to entertain everybody up here. Okay.
Do
we just need to take focus back?
No, it's on there. I just need to click through. So there we go.
All right. Now here's where I say, I'm like long in the tooth Mac admin. We have an identity team. Our identity team is amazing at Jamf, and they said, we have this preview tenant. We're going to make you super admin, so you can go around and FAFO in there and try to see what you can do to set all this up. So the first thing is you'll want that Okta device access licensing as part of your Okta identity engine. That's a component of this. It's an important part of that kind of device attestation flow to trust the device that's authenticating. So this is what it looks like. You're going to go, once you have that licensing in your Okta tenant, you will go to your integrations and you're going to search in the application catalog for platform single sign-on for macOS. So we're going to go ahead and add that to our tenant. When we do that, that's where that client ID came from in the app config for Okta Verify. So that's where that ID value comes from. All right, so then from there, we're going to go customize our platform single sign-on for macOS app. First thing is make sure there's a group associated so that users are within that application scope so they can get that experience and setup. Next, what we're going to do, and this is a part that I completely glossed over, is we're going to go into Profile Editor, because again, I'm learning all of this by doing, which is super fun. We need to go in and create those macOS user account values that are going to be picked up to create the name and local user account and home folder for the user. So we're going to go into the Profile Editor and we're going to add two new attributes. One will be, and this is specified in their documentation that we're going to use, that macOS account full name is one of them, and then the other one is macOS account username. And these are just attributes. Now I have these attributes created in my profiles for this application to use in Okta. Now I'm going to go over to the app and I'm going to configure mapping for the new attribute that I created. So back in the application in Okta, there's a link here that says to configure profile mapping. I'm going to click on that link. And then I'm going to go in and determine what attributes that I want to map. This is where you get to customize. If your username and your email and your UPN, maybe they're different things because you've migrated from like legacy AD into your IDP or whatever the case may be, right? So here we're using user display name and user short name, and then you can go down and preview and test it to make sure that it's pulling those values appropriately. Here there's me, so it pulled my name and my username in the format that we want to create those accounts on macOS. Now this is the SCEP certificate part. In Okta, we're going to go into our device integrations, and very critically, you're going to tap on the tab that says device access. If you don't see that, that means you're lacking that Okta device access licensing, but you wouldn't have been able to add the platform app if you didn't already have it, so you probably will see this in there. So device access, we're going to add a SCEP integration. We're using dynamic, and then that's where the SCEP URL, the challenge URL, the username and password come from for that SCEP profile that we used to create our pre-stage enrollment. And that's how you set all that stuff up in Okta. Now, I'm going to tell you this. When I implemented this internally at Jamf, I wrote, it was like the Odyssey. I wrote a huge doc, step by step, every piece of the way of how you configure all this stuff. I'm going to be working with Adam, Derek, and some folks internally to turn that into a customer-facing documentation that you can follow step by step. We're going to wait until Okta's ready to have it in GA before any of that goes out live. But what I will say is some of the additional stuff that you want to know about Platform Single Sign-On has been covered in a lot of the sessions this week already. Marcus had one earlier this week. Adam Derek also had one. We've got this one here. We've had some demos going on. This QR code goes to jamf.it/PSSO, which I think Matt mentioned earlier in the conversation. That will take you to a URL that has a big trail up of everything and includes links to all the sessions that happened this week. And then these are all going to end up on YouTube at some point. And we were like at overtime by like, oh my God, y'all are still here. That's amazing. So this is the last session, right?
Woo!
Do we want to offer sticking around to answer
Yeah.
a few more questions if the crew is okay with us doing a little bit of that?
Cool.
Awesome. So thank you for going through that journey with us.
Yeah.
There was a lot to it. What we try to do with Jamf at Jamf, and Matt talked about this a little bit, right? There's the product strategy. There's the, we know this is coming, Apple's building this amazing technology, we have all these amazing vendors that love Apple and want to enable this stuff for enterprise. But like, how do we do it for real? What's that for real experience of going in and actually configuring all of it like? And that's really what Jamf at Jamf is. That's what our team does. So what we always want to show you is when you hear about these concepts, here's the for real.
Yep.
Here's the for real, literally field by field, step by step, how you do it, and that you can really do it, and it's here now. And once Okta releases that new agent later this month, you all will be ready to do this too. It's already there. It's Jamf Pro 11.20 had the initial simplified setup stuff. Just some of the considerations are, the simplified setup is specific to macOS Tahoe. So you'll want to do some testing with your pre-stage and requiring a minimum OS of 26 to support that flow. Otherwise, like, what happens if a Mac comes into a pre-stage with simplified setup turned on, but then they're not running macOS Tahoe yet? Does it do anything?
I have no idea. You're the IT one. So
I don't know yet. Matt,
no
Mark
idea.
might know. I don't know if we've really tested that.
Yeah.
I have ideas.
He has ideas.
He has ideas.
Yeah, and when we
yeah.
find out more, go to jamf.it/PSSO, and we'll share our learnings with you all there on our trusted access
videos
portal.
of what happens.
Videos of what happens
Yeah.
when you do stuff that way. So I guess I think there's a mic. We'll want to answer questions on the mic so the recording can pick it up. So
Yes.
I think you're going to help us with that a little bit. It looks like there are a few in the room. We will not take it personally
Yeah,
if you
and if
leave.
you gotta
We know
leave,
we're over.
thank you,
Please.
thank you for coming.
We appreciate you all for
Yeah,
being
really
here.
appreciate
Anyone
it.
that we can chat more. It's like our the BYO session all over again.
I know,
Remember,
it's great.
the recording ended up being like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we'll start in the back and we'll kind of move forward then.
Okay.
As we
Yeah,
have a lot of
great.
questions, I think. So start here.
I just have a basic one. Have you tested any of this with any other IDPs, just like with just Entra or?
Have we tested with other IDPs?
Have we tested? Yes, we've tested with other IDPs, and we are Jamf internal, but we're working towards building that as well. But that is with the other IDPs. The only other IDP that's actually doing the work right now is Microsoft Entra. So any other ones, if you have your IDP, put in a support request for them to do the work, but they're a bit far behind at this point.
But as you're heading out today and maybe head back to the expo hall, there's a QR code you can scan for a survey. We're trying to say, here, I'm a Google customer and I want this.
Yeah.
I'm a Ping customer and I want this. I work with this other IDP and we want this. And we're trying to show our vendors that organizations want this, and we would love to see the other IDPs catch up to the two fantastic ones that are ready to enable this in the enterprise now, or very close to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're a K-12 that typically has devices that maybe aren't one-to-one out of the box. We really like anybody to be able to log into them. So we have Jamf Connect login configured where it fully goes through the setup and then they just end up at a login screen. and post that anybody can log in. Moving to Platform SSO, a lot of that is very, one-to-one if you're using the simplified setup, and there's the authenticated guest mode. So I'm wondering, is there a middle ground there, and is that something, anything that you've guys run into before?
Yeah, we didn't talk about it because we're all one-to-one, but there's a shared device mode that you can configure and set up where what's neat about the authenticated guest mode is that you can set up that screen for a username and password, and you basically, your first enrollment and your first activation with PSSO will register the device in such a way that it's a known device, but instead of creating an initial user account, you just get to the username and password screen. You type in any username and password that's valid within your organization, and with authenticated guest mode, it will actually really quickly start a new user session. So instead of creating a whole new deep home user, it will actually create this very lightweight, more ephemeral sort of user.
Yeah, ephemeral, yeah.
That's made for switching in and out. So that mode does exist. There's documentation for it. Check it out. But that is something that Apple.
Yeah, I think for certain use cases that would be good, especially where it erases the information after. But there's maybe cases where I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. So
Right.
and this is where Jamf Connect may be the right fit for some time. You got to just totally evaluate the two and put them neck to neck based upon your use cases. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and here's the answer to the but what about Jamf, is this platform single sign-on replacing Jamf Connect? No. Because if you're not an Okta customer or a Microsoft customer, you use Google, you use something else, you're still going to need Connect. Connect is going to continue to exist for customers that use other IDPs until those other IDPs are prepared for this. So it'll continue to exist for the customers that don't use those two IDPs for this flow.
Yeah, and from a product perspective, we're going to continue supporting it, and we're going to continue innovating and putting resources, R&D resources into other identity workflows. Now that Apple's filled this gap with PSSO, we can now invest our engineering efforts into other cool adjacencies in identity.
The current iteration of Platform Single Sign-On for Okta already includes multi-user support, so you can create new users on the fly, and it retains those user accounts in those scenarios. So have a look at that.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Marcus.
even though we are one-to-one, I was telling Matt last night, I've got this idea where we have a kiosk at the front of our offices.
Yeah.
Someone rolls in from out of town, and they left their laptop at the hotel. They can use their digital badge, because we do digital employee badging, to tap to authenticated guest mode, hop on their email real quick, say, I forgot my laptop, I'm so sorry, but I will be at that meeting, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just this ephemeral user account, and then they log out and it's gone. And they can just do it with that really cool authenticated guest mode touch to log in stuff that we heard about from Swift Connect.
Yeah,
it's a dream. It's a dream. I don't know how real it can be right now, but it's a dream of mine.
It's not real yet, but it's all there, right? And we're just waiting for IDP support.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
So the SCEP configuration, does that functionality exist in Intra also?
That's unique to Okta.
That's an Okta approach. They do other mechanisms for that bit. So,
will you all cover that in your documentation when you get there?
Yep, so that will be, and they're working on that part as well as part of their simplified setup with device attestation, correct?
A couple questions. The first is, what's the recommended method for changing your password once you've got PSSO? Can you use the native Mac functionality to change your password, or should you change it in Okta? What does that look like?
How do we recommend changing passwords when?
I swear I saw, Bolins, where are you? I saw him outside the room, one of our identity automation engineers at Jamf. But I think Marcus can answer it.
You want us?
When you enable Platform Single Sign-On, the native password change is grayed out. You can't access it. It has to be changed through the identity provider. Be mindful of the synchronization methods for the password. It's not timed the way, or variably timed the way it is in Jamf Connect. It's thinking on the fly. I think it's every 4 hours. It will synchronize it back, or on login or screensaver lock. So keep that in mind with your documentation. But it is 100%. So that's where having in the menu bar or something like that.
The
Dan.
Okta guy.
There we go, Dan.
Can we pass it to Dan?
Pass the mic.
No.
On the record.
Dan from Okta's here. Thank you for joining us.
If you change your Okta password on another device, for example, as long as you're connected to the internet on the machine and you just put in that new password, it will sync.
There's like some kind of signal that goes out to the devices associated with that user that the password has changed. That's cool.
Cool.
That's cool stuff.
Dan, everybody. So if you want to catch, thank you, Dan. If you're an Okta customer, talk to Dan. He's here to answer some questions too. So.
Okay, thank you. The other part was, where in the config do you actually set whether or not the account is created as an admin or as a standard account?
We showed that a little bit. So when the video comes out later, you'll see there are some drop downs where you can say, that just-in-time account creation, should it be a standard or admin? And then you can say any other accounts that might be created at the login window, if you enable that, should they be standard or administrator? And it's just a drop down of like admin or standard.
Okay.
So it is in there, yeah.
And this is talking to like the innovation of continued stuff we're doing. Like while we're not doing the login window replacement, Jamf Connect as it stands is going to allow you to do the privilege escalation to admin in a really seamless way using your tokens with Platform SSO to do a check with Okta if you're authorized to elevate to admin. If you're in a group, you could automate it through PAM and those sort of things, or otherwise just to make sure you really are the real user, you could do a Touch ID verification before you become an admin user. And so those are the sort of investments we're making to help solve other identity problems.
And then when you're really cooking, you've got Jamf Protect, you set up an analytic to see when the Jamf Connect daemon elevates the accounts and what the reasoning is, and then you ship it off to SecOps or Splunk, and you see how often it's happening, and you get the whole thing, right?
And your security team's really happy about that.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. It's cool stuff. We've got a few more.
We got the microphone over there.
Mike's over here, okay.
Yeah. Hey, does the Simplify Platform SSO option in Prestige will replace the account settings pre-fill primary account information in Prestige options for the
you remove all that. Yeah, all that stuff. You'll want to have that stuff removed from, because that account is going to be created by Okta and Okta Verify for this very specific scenario, because we're talking about you setting up for Okta. Okta's creating the account. You can then go in and you can say non-platform SSO accounts in that PSSO profile, and you can make your like IT admin or whatever that way. If you need
super specifically, macOS is creating the account, not Okta.
Right,
You're
I'm sorry.
authorizing, so macOS is doing the account creation.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, and one last question. And in a hypothetical scenario that I just have one Prestige enrollment for macOS Tahoe, and let's say I still have Sequoia machines, is it recommended to have just one or separate them?
Well, how much do you want to go in and tinker with your assignments of computers in Jamf Pro to make sure the right one ends up where? The recommendation there would be for like your sanity would be to just require a minimum OS version of 26
for new
so
devices,
that for new enrollments that come in. So if older OSs come in, a re-enrollment, something that's been on the shelf for a while that still has Sequoia on it or whatever, it'll need to upgrade to Tahoe before it goes through the account creation process. That would be the recommendation there.
And Apple very specifically designed it to do the OS update before PSSO kicks off. That's a very clear requirement for the MDMs to have implemented correctly.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, we've got Mike's over here. Okay.
Thank you so much. So much great information packed in there. We just became an Okta customer, so in some ways it's like great timing, and also bad timing because we just finished our device refresh. So if I know you touched on it for like a moment, but I was trying to soak in as much information as possible. Could you talk a little bit about like once you're already like devices that are already set up, like if you're not going through like the whole enrollment.
So my order of operations here may be slightly off, so take this with a grain of salt. But what I do know is once the accounts you've got these accounts that are already created on your Macs, right? You can, if you're using like Connect, you can take your Connect configuration out or just take out the identity component that that this is OIE or whatever, right? And just leave the like fun bits for menu bar. You can then send out your platform single sign-on, your SSOE profile to those computers, and they'll start getting prompted to do user registration.
That was that little notification that we showed in one of the slides, so yeah.
Once the user is registered, you can have them run a sudo profiles renew type enrollment, and it'll re-enroll. And honestly, that part, I don't even think you technically need to do that at that point. But what it does is it turns on that user channel MDM for you. And like to give you, since we're all here and we're just having fun and talking, right? Let me give you our like 8-month why the heck did we do all of this now talk, right? So blueprints, declarations, DDM, right? One of the things that the new declarative device management has turned on for everybody from a management perspective that we haven't had in how long is Safari extensions, deploying plugins for Safari. that requires the user channel to be enabled on that device because Safari's agents only exist in the user space on macOS. So to have that, we needed account SSO and Jamf account so that we could be signed in with that, and then we get all the goodies. We get declarations, we get compliance benchmarks, all that stuff. So then it's, well, all of our Jamf Connect created accounts only have device channel. We need user channel to get Safari extensions because that's the only part we have to have that to do that thing. So then it's re-registering our users with SSOE, taking the connect bits off, and then sending that pseudo profiles renew type enrollment command to those computers to do a fresh enrollment attempt for that computer, and that will turn on the user channel once you enroll after that user registration has happened. I think you have to do you have to do the user registration first? He's saying no.
They can be separate, but for your internal goals, you may as well have the user do both as one. So
Yeah, part of it is sometimes there's like technically no, but when you think about it from an IT service management perspective and you want a consistent documented experience for your end users in like a migration of this kind, you just say, I built the workflow to happen this way every time. So you may end up having it happen in a slightly different order, or you may not care about the user channel component. We very specifically do for organizational goals we have. So the next evolution is we'll get our pre-stage ready for all new enrollments, and rather than just waiting on attrition on a refresh, we will do a big flow where we move everyone off of Connect Login, we'll have the user registration happen with SSOE, and then at some point when we really need to get that user channel sorted out, we'll send the profiles renew command to everybody, trigger a fresh enrollment, and then get that user channel and start rolling out DLP for Safari.
And on the
Sorry, Jamf employees, I don't mean to spoil that for you.
No, that's fine. And on the consultant engineering side, some of the stuff we're looking at is how we could build some scripts and some tools to help you with this migration, so you're not learning it from scratch every time. So keep it. If we do anything like that, it's going to be on that PSSO website that we put up there.
Yeah, this is where the power of the stuff that was announced on terraforming, on infrastructure as code for Jamf Pro gives you automation and change control behind rolling this stuff out into your environment.
Yeah, so we'll make it easier for you to adopt, to do this stuff through API and whatnot. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hey, question about some of the management attestation for desktop devices. Is that a core component for Platform SSO to work? Or if you just want to be able to get users enrolled and into their Macs at a basic level, can you do without?
So you don't, so managed device, so the managed device attestation bit is an optional thing that Apple provides to the IDPs during their device registration process. So they will get higher assurance that that device is actually a genuine Apple hardware through that process. But that's an optional process. I believe Okta generates their own identifier today, and that's being used, but I think that there's plans to use the certificate. So that's, but yeah, so it doesn't block your deployment at all. And technically, there's no PKI you need to do. You don't need to set up any ACME DA PKI. That is entirely handled by Apple's services. So you don't have to do anything from a PKI infrastructure perspective to support that. Cool.
Thanks for all this info. I'm in higher ed, and specifically in regards to authenticated guest mode, I've been suffering under Phoronix deep freeze for the past decade, so I'm very excited for that. I've got full employee badging in Apple Wallet. I've got an Okta FastPass rollout. We should hypothetically be able to buy readers. I know for Platform SSO, in regards to this stuff with Tahoe, Verify is getting update later this month. What is the, I guess, availability for setting up authenticated guest mode looking like in terms of time frame? Because I'm like vibrating with excitement wanting to do this.
So Jamf Pro 1120 supports all the keys from an MDM perspective to set all that up. It's now just a matter of, are those capabilities supported by the IDP? So that may be something good to talk to Dan about maybe after the session
Mark?
here.
I'll just grab the mic. So to that, the keys are there to support it. There's not, as Apple announced with macOS 26, an optional automatic registration of PSSO. That's not going to happen zero touch in a lab. But as long as like you can still enforce like the first registration to PSSO, and then you can just kind of leave it there at the login window for authenticated guest mode. And that testing you can do today with anyone's PSSO apps.
Maybe like one or two more.
Yeah.
Y'all,
1, 2. Yeah. Then
1, 2.
Yeah.
This is like any
You guys
Zoom,
are awesome.
Any
Thank
Zoom
you.
call we're on is so like
Oh
this. We're
my
like, we
God.
only need 30, and it's like an hour and a half later, and
Yeah.
we're like so in the weeds. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys. So you guys have already sort of answered this, but if a theoretical organization had never deployed Jamf Connect, they were an Okta customer, would it be worth even going down the Jamf Connect route, or should we just like go headfirst into Platform SSO?
Ooh, great question. So you do not have Jamf Connect rolled out?
Not yet, no.
Yeah, I would evaluate your requirements and I would test PSSO, make sure that it fits fits the bill. If so, PSSO. If not, Jamf Connect. But you need all the right requirements with the right IDP, with the sort of use cases. You got to make sure the integrations are correct. There's lots and lots of history in Connect working really, really well at scale. PSSO is relatively new. I think it's ready to go, personally, and I think there's a lot of evidence that customers using it at scale, so you just need to do your testing on that case. But we are fully arms wide open for PSSO here at Jamf.
And I'll just say too, on the topic of Self-Service Plus, which we teased a little bit throughout, Self-Service Plus does have that Connect capability kind of baked in now as a unified endpoint app, right? So you'll still want to explore what Connect can do.
Yeah.
If you don't do the just-in-time creation with like Platform Single Sign-Up, you don't do simplified setup, and you decide you want to, or you do, whatever the case may be, Connect is still going to add value with identity tie-ins for your end users through Self-Service Plus. It can still elevate and demote flow for you. You can customize it with like scripts and automated actions and help desk links and stuff. So it's worth exploring Connect and how to configure it, even if you don't use it for the account creation stuff for your Macs. It still provides a lot of value.
And I'll just say really quickly, from putting on my product hat, from the licensing perspective, we're doing Jamf for Mac now, which gives you all the licensing for literally everything you saw here today. So you don't have to worry about like picking and choosing pieces. You have a lot more flexibility to take advantage of what you need to on your own timeline.
Mm-hmm. One more?
Hi, so we're actually a new customer. We just started building out our environment back in July, and we went through the whole process of setting up Connect. And then during the project, it was brought up that they wanted a different login experience, which Connect does not provide. And so we started going the route of PSSO. But now we're running into issues where because we don't have Okta, we're using Entra. So I know that Entra is not fully enabled for, especially the simplified process. But currently, when we do the pre-stage, at least during our testing, we're having to do like 3 or like 4 different sign-ins, like because it's a combination of Entra and Connect, like especially like during the pre-stages, first Entra or first Platform SSO, then Connect signing in through Entra, and then having to do the registration through Entra.
Yeah, you get a little bit of that, right? You get your enrollment customization, and then you get the account creation, and then you get the other thing. Yeah, there's still a little bit of that. It's not super smooth yet.
Yeah, because if we remove Connect from the equation and just try to do all Platform SSO, we can't, because we're trying to do it without having to create a local, do the automatic create account. It does the first login, and then it's at the login screen, and then we can't get past that. Unless
I think this is because Microsoft doesn't formally support it yet.
Correct, yeah. And
so you just got to wait for them to have a build.
So basically, like, we're trying to, because like we want to try to start rolling this out to our, to some of our Mac people.
Yeah.
By end of year, like, do we have to basically do the combination with Connect and Entra?
I think I'm trying not to be prescriptive. I think Connect is your stopgap until Entra announces general availability of the feature.
Because real quick, I didn't see with you guys with Okta. Did you have to set up the PSSO on the settings side as well? Because I know like we did that. I feel like we had to do that on with ours within settings so that we enable it within the pre-stage.
The only stuff I had to build was what I showed.
So in Jamf Pro and in Okta, that was it. There was a low configuration profile you have to set up in Jamf Pro to set it up. But
just the config, not having to go into the settings and go into.
You're going into computer management configuration profiles. You're creating a new one. There's a payload for single sign-on extension, and then there'll be an app config. And I won't go much further than that because the Okta docs that already exist for single sign-on, platform single sign-on as it was before the simplified stuff, the setup assistant stuff, lays out everything you need to configure for that very well, especially for Jamf Pro. The Jamf Pro documentation is actually very good. So and I have looked, I've actually when I was like, how do I pull the value out of like app SSO at the command line? Microsoft actually has some really good documentation for interacting with the SSO app locally on macOS and the terminal to do stuff too. So the challenge with Microsoft docs is that they're kind of hard to search through to find what you're looking for, but the stuff is there, it does exist.
We went through their documentation, and we built it out step by step.
Yeah, it's the simplified setup stuff that it's just not ready for.
Jamf's, Microsoft Intra and Microsoft's documentation were still like, I just feel like it's not like smooth.
It's not released yet.
That's
As simple
the thing.
as
It's
that.
so
Microsoft does not
new
support
and
today.
it's so
That's it.
pre-release.
Yeah. So
I
think
was
that's the
actually
simple answer.
very surprised that I could really get it working for real on a computer in time
Yeah.
for JNOC with how new it is, and that's why
Yeah.
we wanted to pull this together. And I think we probably wrap there.
We're good.
Thank you for
Thank
sitting
you, buddies.
here.
Good round of applause.
Thank you all. Yeah, thank you. Emily, good job. Thank you.
That was fun.